Welcome back to Beyond the Headline, everyone. I'm so excited to have you with us on the show today because I'm here with the founder and CEO of UrbanSitter, Lynn Perkins. Lynn, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
I'd love to start out with an introduction to the huge need that UrbanSitter is fulfilling for families.
Yeah, it is. It's a massive need. When I decided to start the business, I did so because I had taken some time off of my last company, and over and over again, as I was reconnecting with new mom friends and old mom friends, I kept hearing from them that they had a need to find trusted childcare. In many cases, these were my friends who were from dual income households. And so my friends actually needed both full-time nannies as well as additional help when they had other plans. And then I also had friends who were stay-at-home moms that needed help when they needed to go to doctor's appointments or honestly just needed a break. And over again, I heard that this was a sort of an urgent need that these moms had. And I just felt like there was a big opportunity to go after this space. It's a over $40 billion space in the United States, and it's just not being served as well today as it could be.
And one of the reasons when you started out was you love setting people up. What's one of your best setups been?
I do. I love setting people up, whether it's jobs or spouses or babysitters, you name it. I set up two coworkers at one of my first jobs. I set them up together, and they went on to get married and have kids. And I think I've now introduced 4 or 5 couples that have gotten married. So, I love setting up babysitters and parents, don't get me wrong, but it is also fun to set up people with their future spouse.
That's super impressive, actually.
Yeah. Yes. No, there haven't been any exchanges or returns so far, so I think I'm on a roll.
I love that. And Lynn, one of the things that really blew me away about UrbanSitter when I was learning about your guys' work is how fast the company and the platform has evolved. So the stat that stuck out to me is that you can hear back from a sitter in under 3 minutes. That just blew me away. How have things changed since you guys started?
That's actually one of the stats that we've most improved because mobile has really come a long way, and actually peer-to-peer services in mobile have really come a long way since we launched 7 years ago, and it's really changed. So when we first started UrbanSitter, it took about 24 hours for a sitter to respond to a parent. And this was mostly done through desktop, and the sitter would log in, see that they had a job offer, they'd get an email about it. Then we moved to SMS, where we were actually pushing messages to sitters, and you could write back, why, yes, I accept the job, and no. And then from there, we very quickly rolled out mobile. And as both parents and sitters have gotten more comfortable doing bookings through their mobile devices, our time has really dropped. And so now, it's not uncommon to hear back in 1 or 2 minutes. And actually for last minute jobs, that under 3 minutes is our average. So I could book a sitter right now, and before I text you to tell you that I've tried to firm up a sitter for our plans on Saturday night, I could hear back from them. And it's one of those things that when a parent is trying to deal with childcare, it sits on their to-do list. And so to have that alleviated really quickly feels really good to parents.
Can they believe it when they try it and they get a response that quickly?
They believe it. I think especially because most of the sitters also write a note associated with it. So I might write a post to you and say like, hey, Jenna, I'm looking for a sitter for Saturday night. Are you available from 6 to 10? And not only will you respond, but you'll probably say something like, oh, looking forward to seeing the kids again. So it does feel really authentic when it happens. And it's just kind of a surprise and delight. It's really nice when I'm doing that when I have fun plans, but it's even more valuable when it's 10 o'clock at night and my nanny is sick and can't come the next day. So it serves as a delight mechanism on both ends of the immediate need and sort of the opting in to do something fun.
And something that's super interesting too about the platform is how, and you discuss this in a really great, we were just talking about Camille, a really great first round review piece, that you guys have mirrored things that happen in real life on the UrbanSitter platform. So one that I thought was great is having a repeat sitter, because that's huge. Can you tell us about that philosophy?
Sure. So we really felt, my co-founders and I really felt that when we built UrbanSitter that we wanted to mimic the trust that happens when parents look for childcare offline. So as I mentioned, all of these people started telling me that they had childcare needs, and they would say, oh, you have an amazing nanny, I'd love to hire her friend. Or, oh, I'm asking all the moms at my preschool, do they have any recommendations? And we really wanted to bring those social connections onto the platform. And so that was a key component for us. But then the other thing is that we are transaction based, which means that we know every time that you've booked a sitter So when you have a sitter come back to your house for the second time, that sitter gets a badge on our site that's called a repeat family. And it's a really, really important badge because parents feel like reading reviews feels very subjective. So you and I may have very different parenting styles. And so whether you thought the sitter cleaned up the house well enough or not might be different than my standard. But at the end of the day, parents are all concerned about safety. And so when they see this repeat family badge, it feels like this nice mix of both subjectivity and sort of an objective review where you're kind of coupling the quantitative data with this qualitative, like, okay, that family felt good about hiring that person back again. So it feels less subjective than a review. And it just really also shows that the sitter is responsible too, like accepting a second job with the family. And that's probably our most important stat. So in fact, like sitters that have that badge get booked at 4 times the rate of sitters that don't have that badge. So it really does move the needle on the sitter side in getting bookings.
And you guys have 120,000 sitters now, right?
Yeah, I think we're up to like 140,000 now. Yeah. So we've grown that side of the population pretty quickly.
Wow. And is 60 markets still the right number, or is it more than that?
We're in about 60 markets. So we really focus our marketing spend in about 20 cities, and they're kind of like the biggest US cities, as you can imagine. But what's really been interesting is that our sitters are pretty transient. So you might join Urban Sitter when you're in college in Denver, and then after college you decide to move to New York. And because New York is really expensive, your first job might not pay what you need it to support your cost of living. So it's not uncommon to find sitters that have moved to different cities. And so even though we've never spent a dollar in Charleston, South Carolina, we've had sitters that have moved there. So you actually could book a sitter in Charleston that has sort of a healthy history with us on the platform.
That's awesome. How fast or what part of the business is growing the fastest right now?
Well, it's interesting. So right now, like specifically today as we speak, it's parents looking for recurring care. So right now in at this point in time is a lot of like back to school stuff going on. So parents are looking to find that after school sitter who can come and pick up their child from school, or somebody who can meet them after their soccer game and play with them until dinner or whatever it might be. So in this time of year, we have a lot of seasonality. And so right now, the fastest growing part of our business are actually people who are looking for that recurring care. The rest of the year, we actually see more bookings happen for like a one time, whether it's a Monday through Friday during spring break kind of gig, or hey, I need somebody Saturday night. But specifically during back to school, we see a lot of use case for people who are looking for somebody who will be with them, whether it's through a semester or for the whole school year.
I'm really glad you mentioned all of the different use cases that you guys see, because in looking at Urban Sitter, and maybe it's because I'm not a parent, I was shocked by the wide range of needs parents have when they're looking for care. So one that I thought was really interesting is parents in New York will hire a Broadway actor to come
Right.
and
Yes.
teach their kids improv. How have you built your team and led your team to be able to handle all of those different use cases and adapt quickly?
Well, we really decided from the get-go to focus on the use case that we thought would grow the social network and trusted network component of our site the fastest. And so that was really occasional babysitting. So we knew that if you as a parent needed a babysitter today, you would probably need one again within a month, and you understood that you may or may not get that same person again. So we knew that focusing on occasional babysitting from the start would build out our network the fastest. And so that's always kind of been our bread and butter. But then people started using our platform for things like finding a nanny, or to your point about finding something very specialized, like looking to find the Mandarin tutor from our database as well. And so as we've scaled, as with any startup that I'm sure you talk to, our biggest issue is just not having enough resources. And so every quarter, when we look at what we're going to prioritize in the product, we kind of have to weigh into account like where's the biggest opportunity for us. And so we've been lucky that now that we've worked on our occasional babysitting product for so long, we can actually start doing more for parents who are looking for that recurring care. And the good news is, our user operations team, our customer support team, obviously the volume that they're seeing has really grown as we've scaled. And so they've really challenged themselves to figure out how can they make their process more efficient. Also, how can we bring on additional help and train people quickly? So as we've scaled the business, we've had to kind of adapt what we focus on the product. We've had to build better processes in place, and because obviously we don't want to scale our home office team to the same extent that our growth is happening. So some of it's worked, some of it hasn't. We've had to sort of evaluate it and try something different, but for the most part we've been able to keep up with the growth fairly well.
Has there been a use case that just totally surprised you?
Well, my favorite one, there was a family that was coming to New York from Paris, and they were looking for somebody. They were going to pay this person $35 an hour for 3 days to spend the day shopping with their 13-year-old twin girls around Manhattan. And I thought, oh, if I was in New York, I would definitely take that job. That sounds like a fun one. And then on the other, end of the spectrum, like on the pull your heartstrings, we have families where one of their children is sick and needs to be in the hospital
Mm.
for some period of time, and one of the biggest things that they feel a pain point on is childcare for the other children or other child. And so we see a lot of people who are buying Urban Sitter gift cards to help families where they need some support for the other children who are at home. Or, a lighter weight situation would be a family has a third baby and they have these two kids at home and they need additional help with those kids. But you see it on both ends of the spectrum, from extravagant to life changing, in the sense that it's actually allowing these people to get through a tough situation on a day to day basis. It's like that part is really moving. And then on the sitter side, I'm always moved when a sitter tells us that they were able to pay for college or buy a car because of what they're doing on Urban Sitter. And I mean, there's nothing like somebody telling you that they would have had to stop out of school for a quarter and earn money to
Oh,
pay their
wow.
increased tuition, but they moved to a new city and were able to actually find jobs because of Urban Sitter. Like that probably gets me the most.
And that's what's so special too is when you started, it was purely for let's help families find better care, and so many things happened as a result.
It's true. And, I'm a parent right now, but I used to be a babysitter. And I think I
Me too.
sometimes, I overlook the impact it's had on the sitters' lives. And one of the most exciting things is we have sitters come and tell us that they babysat through Urban Sitter while they were in college. And then one of the families they worked for knew that they really wanted to get into marketing or engineering, whatever it might be. And that family introduces them to people who then get those sitters their first job out of college. And that impact, well, not directly related to the transaction on Urban Sitter, it's that connection that helped them branch out and get that job. So it always is really heartwarming when that happens.
I'd love to shift gears just a little bit and dive into your culture because you described it in an article earlier this summer, and I loved how you did. You said it's real and it's right for you guys. Might not be right for everyone, but it's what's right for your team. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, definitely. I think, we're based in San Francisco, and there are so many startups here and throughout the Bay Area, and they all have just their own energy, but a lot of them have this energy of very young, fun culture where people are coming in, and whether it's playing ping pong or, eating lunch all together and chit-chatting and working late into the night. Like, we unfortunately can't do that because a lot of us have kids, and so we're incredibly efficient. So we're definitely more like a traditional office culture in the sense that people are in pretty early, but we also leave pretty early. And I really worried that this would hinder us from hiring young engineering and marketing talent. But in fact, it's actually worked in our favor. We've have many engineers on our team that are dads, and they've said to us, like, I really want to be at a startup, but I can't come in at noon and leave at midnight. Like, I want to be home for in time for dinner with my kids. And so it's actually worked in our favor. We have somebody who's in a band, we have somebody else who does martial arts, and even though they don't have kids, but they have these other commitments. And so I think we're kind of a unique place in the sense that people work really hard, and everyone's usually back online after they've done whatever their activity or time with their kids. But we're not your traditional startup in the sense that it feels a little bit more serious here, just because time is sort of everybody's most precious commodity. But it's ended up working out, and I feel like we've at different times talked about trying to make it feel a little bit different, but I think it has to be authentic to the founders, and so far it's really worked for us.
And how do you keep that culture of flexibility in both with your team and then also, adapting to the product and everything?
Well, on the team side, we do a lot with. We use Slack all the time. We also do a lot with Google Hangouts. We've been really fortunate. We've had some great talent here that's had to move for other reasons, whether it's for family or for a spouse's job, and we've been able to keep those people on working remotely because we already had systems in place that were so good for us to be flexible. So when something comes up and somebody needs to work from home, or if they're working out of Boston or Honolulu or New York, like some of our employees do, we've just been able to make it work, and we've really made it a priority to make sure that people who aren't in the office still feel really integrated. So whether that's through our fantasy football league or once a week now, one of our engineers started these virtual lunches where it's noon in San Francisco and we all sit down in the lunch area and we turn on a Google Hangout, and he's in Boston having a snack. My coworker Lauren's in Hawaii having breakfast, and we all kind of chat as if we were in the same room.
What a great idea.
Yeah. And then in the product, I mean, the product really is all about flexibility. So you have sitters who really want to maximize their work time when they're available. And so for them, they need the flexibility of being able to say, give me jobs at this time of day, but not this time of day. And then on the parent side, it's really being able to know that you can have a flexible schedule. We have a lot of parents who one parent works full time and the other one has a flexible job, which is great, except for that sometimes with flexible jobs, you need childcare at sporadic times. And so I think we're really offering a solution for that family that likes the flexibility of working part time, but has sort of the this insecurity of, am I going to be able to get a sitter when I have that random meeting at Tuesday at 2? And they tell us all the time that we've really changed the way that those families think about childcare.
And for you in particular, Lynn, you've had so many interesting roles before you started Urban Sitter, both at startups and then companies that started as startups and went on to be larger companies. What did you know you wanted to bring into the culture at Urban Sitter when you started?
I think the two main things, I wanted to make sure that I was hiring a team that could grow with the organization. So looking for people that were willing to be scrappy and roll up their sleeves, but at the same time as we scaled, that they would be able to grow in their roles. I also wanted to bring in people who were really just A plus individuals. So both in terms of their work drive as well as just how I thought of them as team members, and people who wouldn't be afraid to also hire in talent that would challenge them. I think that's a really good culture to have, is to bring in somebody who knows more than you do about something, and be willing to bring in somebody who's going to challenge you, because I think that's the best thing for your team. So I really wanted to bring that here. I also just really wanted it to be a place where if you do have kids, or if you do have cycling as a hobby or music, whatever it is, that you don't feel like you're sort of slinking out of the office when you have to leave at a certain time. I had felt that at other jobs before. And I just wanted people to feel like, I trust that you're going to work really hard. And as long as that's showing up in your work, I don't really want to monitor what you're doing. And I really wanted to have this open culture where people were working really hard towards our goals and our numbers, but didn't feel like they were tied to their desk.
I love that. And I'm so thrilled that you mentioned that second part of bringing on individuals who would want to hire other people who would challenge them, because that's always hard because they're coming in, they're taking a little bit of your job. And even though it's not threatening, sometimes it feels like it is threatening. And you're thinking, oh, am I still going to be here in a little while? How have you approached that?
Well, it's funny because even I face that challenge. I hired in a woman who is our VP of Finance and Operations, and when she came in, and she's not only incredibly talented, but she happens to be a good friend of mine. And when she came in, she started putting systems in place with our banking and different processes, and I had been the one who had been overseeing that before. And I sort of, at first, I was thinking like, oh man, she must just think I did a really poor job. But what I had to say to myself was like, no, I was juggling so many things in the beginning, and given the resources I had, those were the best decisions at the time. But this is why I'm bringing her in. And so I think really trying to make sure that other people understand that, like, we've all been in that situation where you bring somebody in and they want to do it differently. And the way I think that we've kind of alleviated it here is really working collaboratively. We do this thing where every quarter we do a cross-department check-in. So this quarter, for instance, I met with somebody on our product team and we shared our goals and we talked about what was challenging. And it's always good to hear that people in other departments are grappling with the same things you are, or like learning little tips from them about how they deal with work challenges.
Oh, what's the best tip you learned from your last meeting?
Well, that's a good one. It's interesting. I met with one of our product managers that I think it was a tip that I learned. I don't think she meant it to be as a tip, but I took it this way. She made a comment about her personal goals this quarter and said, "Oh, I really want to get into the product more and understand why the engineers have made certain decisions." And I realized that for a little bit of time now, I haven't challenged myself in other departments. So I haven't gone and sat down with the user ops team and said, okay, I know this was a big issue for you guys last quarter. Like, tell me what you've learned and what should I know about how we're doing it now? It just kind of made me realize, like, I need to spend more time digging into how other departments are looking at things and analyzing them, because I have become a little bit more removed from some of the day to day.
And how does that feel for you? Do you ever feel like the time went by so quickly and it was initially just you doing everything?
Yes, yeah. It's funny you say it today, because last night we had a company karaoke party, and I looked around and there were, first of all, we could not have done a company karaoke party when we were small because I cannot sing to save my life, so that would not have been good. But I looked around and was like, wow, we've really grown a lot, and it's kind of fun to see that you've brought in all these people that are both excited to work there, but you're also excited to have them there.
What was the experience like for you leading Urban Sitter versus the other teams that you've led in the past?
I think with Urban Sitter, initially, I took it a lot more personally because these were all people that I had brought in, especially with my co-founders. When I put our little group of people together, like you're taking on a lot of responsibility. You're convincing, well, I guess hopefully not, I wasn't convincing them too hard. Hopefully they were passionate about the idea, but you're getting a group of people together who are leaving their day-to-day jobs where they're getting good paychecks and jumping out to try this. And so I feel like in the beginning I took it a lot more personally to make sure that everybody was really happy and that we were working towards a goal that we were all excited about. As we've grown, I think, I haven't taken it personally as much as sort of tried to look to find different leaders in the organization. And it really, we have different people here who have emerged as leaders. So we have somebody who I would say really drives our company culture. She's always the one to remember when it's people's birthdays or to organize activities around things. And so I've tried to look at the talent that we have here and like find different leadership qualities in different individuals that can kind of round out the organization. So yes, I'm still the one getting up at the company meeting and sort of leading the charge, but we also have people here with talents that are just not as authentic to me. And I've really tried to work on cultivating theirs so that they can lead different parts of the company too.
And did those talents, like I love the one who focuses on culture because those little things like remembering someone's birthday really does make just
Totally.
a world of a difference. Did you see those types of talents evolve naturally, or is it something you were actively seeking?
No, they've evolved naturally. And I think there's different people in the organization that have taken on different things. So for instance, we have one woman here who really gets excited about philanthropy. So she asked me, hey, every quarter, can I organize an offsite for a day where people can sign up? They don't have to do it, but we can go and work in a soup kitchen, or we can go and work on a project to help build homes, whatever it might be. She picks different things every quarter. And she came to me with that idea. And I think that's one of the fun things about being at a startup is no matter how new you are to the company, you can always make a difference in the culture. And so I was like, absolutely, I would love to do this. You should run with it.
Can you tell us about your drop the mic tradition too? I
Yes.
loved learning about this.
Yes. So I can't take any credit for that. This was my co-founder, Andrea. But we do this thing every 2 weeks where we do it during demo day where people are demoing stuff that they've worked on over the last couple weeks. And at the meeting, at the end of that meeting, somebody wins this Drop the Mic award. And what it is that everybody in the company can nominate people. So these are things that somebody either just really like killed it in terms of something that they built in the last 2 weeks, or we've been grappling with a solution for something and they've come up with it, or just simply somebody took initiative. Right now with back to school, we're really busy with different promotions, and our marketing director has just been swamped, and she has somehow managed to get all of our fall promotions out there and do it without, she has a smile on her face as she does it. So people can nominate them, and then the person wins the Drop the Mic award, and they get $200 to spend on something at our company. So one person bought an espresso machine. Somebody else took us all out for ice cream. So they get to pick what the activity is, but it's something that benefits the whole company.
What a great idea. I love that.
It's fun. And the 2 weeks is about the right cadence because otherwise, if you do it on a quarterly basis, only the really big projects surface, whereas people are making incremental changes that are helping the company all the time. And so it helps you recognize the people who are going through these little bursts of productivity. And it's really fun.
I'd love to spend some time, Lynn, focusing on your journey as well, leading up to UrbanSitter. Joanne Wilson had a great post. I think this was close to when you started. It was back in 2012, so it was a while ago, talking through some of your roles, one of which was building out 20 hotels. What was that experience like?
Yeah, that was great. So right before UrbanSitter, I worked for a company called Joie de Vivre, which is a leading hotel company. Mostly at the time when I did it, it was just in California. And at Joie de Vivre, we would buy hotels. So think of let's use like Venice Beach, for instance. There was a hotel owner in Venice Beach that had this Best Western hotel and came to us and said, I really think I can make this into a boutique hotel. And I think you're the company to help me renovate it and operate it. And so we would go into these properties and say like, absolutely, this is sort of a 3.5-star Best Western, but the location, this could really be an interesting boutique hotel. And so I would get to work with very creative designers and architects, and also our revenue team. I mean, I loved it because it was both sort of creative, but at the same time, it had a strong business and finance component to it too. And we would renovate these hotels and turn them into something really memorable. So you would walk into this place and like, yes, you would feel like you were in Venice Beach. So the professional graffiti artist had designed the porte cochere area where you would pull in, and the restaurant at the bottom was called Hash, and the bar at the top was called High. And it just would have a really authentic feel for the neighborhood. And they were all different. So you could be at a 5-star one on the Central California coast, or you could be at one in downtown San Francisco that was made out of all recycled and good products. So it was really fun. Every project was different, and I loved working with different talented teams.
Did you work on the custom hotel
I did.
in
That's the
LA?
one that I was just mentioning with the reclaimed wood.
Very cool. I lived there for the last couple of months of college because my
Oh,
apartment lease ran out. So
oh, how
thank
funny.
you.
Yep,
I
that was one of
appreciate
the
the
projects I worked
experience.
on.
Was there
Oh,
one
good.
project that really stood out to you?
Well, that was definitely an interesting one because the goal of that project was to try to use as many both reclaimed products as well as just environmentally friendly products. And so that designer really had quite a challenge to try to go out there. And I mean, now I think that there are so many more products out there that are available to do something like that. So that would be one. I think another one. Would be we also had these crazy opening parties that would go on with the hotels, and so we had one in Long Beach that the hotel owners wanted. We had a fortune teller, but then I needed to be able to create a kosher catering station, and we had fire dancers and all of this crazy stuff that had to come together at the end. And it was kind of a pretty elaborate hotel, so it was kind of a fun project. But I just liked them. Each one was very different. The concept behind them was all very similar in terms of make it feel authentic to the location and turn it from feeling like your standard Hyatt or Best Western box hotel where you don't really know which city you're in and make it really feel authentic to the location, which was fun.
Whether it was then or in one of your experiences before that or even now, have you had any critical turning points in your career that just really stopped you in your tracks?
Oh, definitely. I mean, my second internet company, we closed down, and that was definitely a life-changing experience. I mean, it was the first time that I had sort of like failed at something, and it took me a long time to get over it, but I think what I realized out of it was that like, hey, we did our best. The timing wasn't right. Something about our product wasn't quite right. But I kind of got beyond that experience, and I think it's made me a better leader at Urban Sitter because I focus more on what I hope we can achieve. I'm not afraid of failure in a sense. Not to say that I'm wildly spending money and trying crazy things. I'm always calculating risk, but it's made me realize that like it's not worth focusing your time on the failure side of it because it just takes up energy that you shouldn't be focusing on. It also made me realize not to sweat the small stuff. I think both having kids and having had companies in the past, like I just don't sweat the small stuff anymore.
So, do you think the challenges that you're facing today you could have handled back then? Or was it those experiences that have made you be like, nope, I got this?
Yeah, definitely those experiences have helped. I think those experiences plus I just have more work experience now and I have a good group of people that I'm working with and I'm also I think I'm not as afraid as I was in the past about not having the answer. Like I think I'm more willing to turn. You asked earlier about like developing leaders in the company and turning and how does it feel to have these people here? Well, the good news is I think I've brought in a great group of people who look at things in a different way than I do. And so when I don't know how something should be done, I can turn to them. Or better yet, they'll come to me when they have an idea that I wouldn't have even thought of. So I think really leveraging other people's talent has helped.
And that's something that you did even in the beginning. You know, so many people when they start a company are so hush hush about it and they don't want to share with anyone. But you went out and you tried to talk to as many people as you could about Urban Sitter. Who were some of the people who really helped you during that time?
Well, I talked to quite a few babysitters. I spent a lot of time talking to babysitters in the Bay Area, especially babysitters who had moved here that weren't from here to get ideas on, was this a real issue they were facing? And then I talked to a lot of parents as well. And then I started talking to people who ran marketplace businesses. So finding out more about the dynamics of how do you build the demand side, how do you build the supply side. And I think the reason why I was much more open this time about talking to people about the idea before doing it is that I've also come to realize that it's really hard to get a business off the ground. And you can overhear somebody's idea at Starbucks, and chances are you're not going to run off and start it yourself tomorrow. It's just getting from idea to launching it is much more complicated than, and takes a lot more energy than most people are willing to give it. So I don't think I really lived in fear that somebody was going to run and do this.
What's the best advice you received during that time?
Let's see. I think one of the pieces of advice that I got from sitters, again, I had been a sitter, but I feel like I was more relating to the parent side when I started Urban Sitter. But one of the things that a sitter said to me, they said, and the more control you give me over my calendar and being able to say yes to specific families and no to others, the safer and more control it feels like I have, the more likely I am to recommend it to my friends and to keep the jobs on the platform. And so, they didn't say it in exactly those words, but the point was that I shouldn't just be thinking about, like parents always think about, oh, I want to make sure that the sitter is safe for my child. But the same thing goes on the other side. If you're a 22-year-old woman living in a city where you didn't grow up and you're going to a family's house for the first time, that can feel really overwhelming. And so we made a point in the product of showing sitters a lot of the information that parents also see. So for instance, if I go to book a sitter, she can see, oh, great, Lynn has had 6 sitters come back to our house again. Oh, and look, I can see that she knows a family that I babysat for the other week. So I took that information to heart and really tried to make it feel like the best platform for sitters as well as parents.
I love that. I didn't even really think about that. I did focus more on the parents wanting to make sure that their child was with the best possible fit for the family.
Right.
I like that. All right, last one for you, and it's totally unrelated to
Great.
work, but I have to know, I love that Joanne wrote about this in her post. You spent some time in Italy when you were at Stanford. You ended up playing soccer when you were there. What was your experience like, and what was the best meal that you had when you were there?
Oh, gosh. I don't even think we have enough time to talk about the best meal I had. So on the soccer front, a friend and I both took classes we took classes through Stanford, but we also took classes at the local university, and we met some women that were on a soccer team, and they said, oh, do you play? And at the time, it wasn't very common for Italian women to have played when they were kids, whereas, in the US it is. And so my friend and I played with this team, and it was hilarious because it was right next to the national stadium or the main stadium in Florence, but it was actually on the kind of dirt field next to it. So imagine like Class A soccer field on your one side now, and it was here. And then it was kind of like if you've ever seen the Bad News Bears, it was similar. My team smoked at halftime frequently. I think there were a lot of leg warmers being worn, and it was kind of comical, but it was really great experience, and it definitely helped my Italian. And we got to travel around to little areas outside of where we lived and see different cities and stuff, and so it was really fun. And it was just a great way to get to know local people, so it was definitely exciting. And then best meal, that's tricky. Probably my favorite meal in Italy. I went to a friend's house who lived in northern Italy, and her dad made homemade gnocchi, and it included truffles that he had like gathered that morning. So it was one of those like just very authentic. On the flip side, my other Italian friend who lived in central Italy, I had a fabulous lunch at her house, except for that it included roast rabbit, and I had seen her grandmother kill the rabbit earlier that morning. So it was definitely fresh, but not sure that I needed that impression. But yeah, I mean, there's so many great meals.
I love that. It's such a once in a lifetime experience. So I had to know, and just the fact that you ended up playing when you got there is so cool.
It was fun. It was really a fun way to do it. I learned a lot of slang from playing soccer.
I'm so grateful, Lynn, that we got to have you on today, and we got to touch on so many interesting parts of your experience. And of course, the Italian meal, because that's just got to cap it off. What's the best way for everyone who's listening in to learn more about your work, and specifically for parents or for sitters, how can they start to get involved?
Oh, great. Well, definitely they can check out UrbanSitter.com. For parents that are looking for tips and advice for hiring nannies and babysitters, we have a great blog that includes tons of information, including we publish a survey every year that shows what rates people are paying in different cities. And I also can be reached at lynn@urbansitter.com.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thanks.